The caretaker thought she had the perfect crime. She changed the gate codes, drugged my father, and blocked my number. She was one signature away from stealing his $3 million estate. But she forgot one tiny detail. I installed the smoke detectors.
The Quiet Case Files.
It was supposed to be a celebration. My father, Robert, was turning 70 years old that Tuesday. I had the day marked on my calendar for months. I had ordered a vintage watch he'd been eyeing for years, and I called him at exactly 9 in the morning, just like I always did on his birthday. I expected his booming voice. Maybe a joke about finally being an old man. Instead, I got her, Jessica, the live-in nurse we had hired 6 months ago. The phone rang 4 times before she picked up, and her tone was sharp, clipped, like I was a telemarketer interrupting her dinner. "He is sleeping, Mark," she said. No greeting, no warmth. I checked my watch. It was 9 in the morning. Dad never slept past 7. He was a morning person, a man who believed the day was wasted if you were not up with the sun. I told her it was his birthday. I told her I just wanted to wish him a happy 70th. She sighed, a loud, exaggerated sound of annoyance. "He had a bad night," she insisted. I gave him something to help him rest. "Do not call back. I will have him call you when he wakes up." Then the line went dead. She hung up on me. I stared at the phone, a cold knot forming in my stomach. This was not the first time. For the last 3 weeks, every time I called, there was an excuse. He was in the shower. He was napping. He was out for a walk. I realized with a sudden, chilling clarity that I had not heard my father's voice in 21 days. Something was terribly wrong. I tried calling Dad's cell phone immediately, straight to voicemail. I tried the landline again. Busy signal. She had taken the phone off the hook. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rising, hot anger. I scrolled through my contacts and found Mr. Miller, the neighbor who lived directly across the street. He and Dad had been playing chess on Fridays for 20 years. If anyone knew what was happening, it was him. Mr. Miller picked up on the second ring. "Mark," he said, his voice low and worried. "I am glad you called. I tried to go over there yesterday to drop off a card. Did you see him?" I asked, gripping the edge of my desk. "No," Miller replied. "I could not even get to the front door. That nurse, she had a crew out there last week. They installed a new electronic gate at the end of the driveway. High privacy fence, too. I tried the old code, the one your dad gave me for emergencies, but it didn't work. She changed it, Mark. She has turned the house into a fortress." The blood drained from my face. A new gate? Changing the codes? This was not caretaking. This was a siege. I did not bother packing a bag. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. It was a 3-hour drive to Dad's estate, and I promised myself one thing. I was not leaving until I saw my father, gate or no gate. While I was pushing my car to 80 miles per hour on the interstate, a nightmare was unfolding inside the house I grew up in. My father was sitting in his leather recliner, the one he used to read stories to me in, but he was barely there. He later told me the room felt like it was swimming underwater. He was awake, but his limbs felt like lead, heavy and useless. Jessica walked into the room, not with a birthday cake, but with a small plastic cup and a glass of water. "Time for your afternoon cocktail, Robert," she said, her voice dripping with a fake sweetness that made my skin crawl when I watched the footage later. She called them his vitamins, a toxic mix of sedatives and muscle relaxers that no doctor had ever prescribed. Dad tried to shake his head. He tried to push the cup away, to say that he wanted to wait for my call, but his coordination was gone. His tongue felt too thick for his mouth. When he tried to speak, the words slurred together, sounding like the ramblings of a drunkard rather than a man of his sharp intellect. She did not listen to his protests. She just pressed the cup to his lips and tipped his head back, forcing him to swallow the chemical fog that kept him docile. After the drugs took hold, The psychological warfare began. This was her routine. She pulled the ottoman close, invading his personal space until her face was the only thing he could see. "You keep asking about Mark," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But Mark did not call, Robert. Not today. Not yesterday." My father tried to protest. In his heart, he knew I would never miss his 70th birthday. But his mind was cloudy, and she was so persistent. "He is not coming," she hissed. "He is busy spending his own money. He is just waiting for you to die. Robert, he told me he wants to sell the vintage cars the moment you are gone." It was a vicious, calculated lie. She was systematically isolating him, severing the emotional bonds that gave him the will to fight. Tears rolled down my father's cheeks, tears of betrayal he believed was real. She wiped his face, not with compassion, but with a rough, aggressive swipe of a tissue. "Don't worry," she said, standing up and checking her reflection in the mirror. "I will take care of you. The lawyer is coming tomorrow morning to fix everything. We will make sure that ungrateful son of yours gets absolutely nothing." She turned off the lights, leaving him in the dark, but she didn't know that I was already at the perimeter and I was about to turn the lights back on. I arrived in town just as the sun was dipping below the horizon, casting long, bruised shadows across the neighborhood. I did not drive up to the main gate. If Mr. Miller was right, Jessica would see me coming on her new security system, and she would have time to prepare, or worse, heard him before I could get inside. I parked 3 blocks away, tucked under the heavy shade of an old oak tree, and pulled out my tablet. Jessica thought she was a genius. She had ripped out the modern Wi-Fi cameras I installed the previous Christmas, probably thinking that blinded me completely. But she made a classic amateur mistake. She assumed that if she could not see a blinking light, the camera did not exist. She did not know about the system Dad and I built 15 years ago. It was a hardwired closed-circuit system that did not rely on the internet. It ran on copper, wires hidden deep behind the drywall, powered by a backup generator in the basement. And the primary lens? It was not a white plastic box mounted on the ceiling. It was a pinhole lens, no bigger than the tip of a pen, drilled discreetly into the mahogany face of the antique grandfather clock standing in the corner of the living room. It was a family heirloom, a piece of furniture she had likely dusted 100 times, never realizing it was watching her back. I booted up the legacy software, my fingers trembling over the glass screen. The video feed flickered gray, then static, and then clear, sharp video. I was in. The image on my tablet was crisp. It showed the living room in high definition. My father was slumped in his chair, looking smaller and frielier than I had ever seen him. Jessica was pacing back and forth in front of him, holding a stack of documents. She was not nursing him. She was drilling him. It was a rehearsal. "When Mr. Henderson asks you," she barked, pointing a finger in his face, "you say, 'Yes, I understand.' Do you hear me, Robert? Say it." "Yes, I understand," Dad mumbled, his head lolling to the side. "Louder," she shouted, slamming the papers down on the side table. "You have to sound convincing. We are doing this tomorrow at 10 o'clock. You cannot mess this up." I watched in horror as she rehearsed the script for his own financial execution. She was coaching him to sign away his life's work. She mentioned the time again, 10 in the morning. I checked the dashboard clock in my car. It was already late evening. The lawyer, this Mr. Henderson, was coming in less than 12 hours. I did not have days to build a case. I did not even have 24 hours. I had one night to stop a robbery that was happening in broad daylight. I needed help, and I needed it fast. I started the car engine, but I did not drive toward the house. I drove toward the sheriff's station. The next morning, the sky was a flat, oppressive gray. At 9:55, a black sedan rolled up to the new privacy gate. From my vantage point down the street, I watched through binoculars as the gate swung open. A man in a cheap suit stepped out, carrying a leather briefcase, followed by a woman who looked like a notary public. This was Henderson. He looked less like a lawyer and more like a vulture circling a dying animal. Inside the house, I was monitoring the feed on my phone. Jessica had transformed. The screaming tyrant from the night before was gone. In her place was the picture of the devoted caregiver. She had combed Dad's hair and put him in a fresh shirt. She was fluttering around him, adjusting his blanket, offering him water, smiling at the lawyer as they entered the room. "He is having a good morning," I heard her say through the tiny microphone in the clock. "He is very lucid today. He has been so anxious to get this settled so he can rest." She wheeled Dad up to the dining table. Henderson laid the documents out. I zoomed in on the video feed. It was not a last will and testament. It was a quitclaim deed. A will takes effect after death. A quitclaim deed transfers ownership of the property immediately. The second he signed that paper, the house, the land, everything will belong to her. She could evict him from his own home before the ink was dry. The tension in the room was suffocating. Henderson uncapped a heavy fountain pen and placed it into my father's trembling hand. Dad looked at the paper, his eyes unfocused. He looked up at Jessica, confusion and fear warring in his gaze. "Robert," Henderson said, his voice bored and routine, "I need to ask you for the record. Are you signing this document of your own free will? Do you understand that you're transferring the title of this property to Jessica Vance?" Dad hesitated. The pen hovered over the signature line. He opened his mouth, perhaps to ask for me, perhaps to say no. Jessica moved instantly. She placed her hand on his shoulder, squeezing it. To the lawyer, it looked like a comforting gesture. But on the high-resolution feed, I saw her knuckles turn white. She was digging her thumb into a pressure point, a sharp, physical threat masked as affection. "Go on, Robert," she said, her voice tight. "Just like we practiced. Do it for us." Dad winced. The pain cut through the drug haze. He lowered the pen to the paper. The tip touched the line. Ink began to bleed into the fiber of the page. He was milliseconds away from losing everything. I signaled the sheriff beside me. It was time to crash the party. The front door did not just open, it exploded inward. I had given the spare key to the sheriff, but he did not need it. The element of surprise was our warrant. I burst into the hallway, flanked by 2 uniformed deputies, their boots thudding heavy on the hardwood floor. The sound was like a thunderclap in the quiet house. "Sheriff's Department," the lead deputy shouted, his voice booming off the high ceilings. "Step away from the table." The scene in the dining room froze. Henderson dropped his briefcase. The notary gasped and backed against the wall. Jessica spun around, her face a mass of shock that quickly curdled into outrage. She still had her hand on my father's shoulder, her grip frozen in place. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked, trying to regain control. "You cannot just barge in here. This is a private legal meeting. I will have your badges for this." I stepped out from behind the deputies. Jessica's eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw a genuine fear flicker behind them. I did not scream. I did not yell. I was past that. I walked calmly over to the large smart TV mounted above the fireplace, the one connected to the home network. I pulled my phone out, tapped the screen, and cast the video file I had saved from the night before. The room went deathly silent. Then, audio filled the space, loud, distorted, and undeniable. It was Jessica's voice, screeching from the speakers. "Asterisk, sign it or you starve. Do you hear me? You are a worthless old man and nobody cares about you." Asterisk. On the giant screen, the footage played. Everyone watched Jessica, the woman currently standing in her pastel nurse's scrubs, shoving my father, withholding his food and threatening him. The contrast between the angelic caregiver in the room and the monster on the screen was absolute. The color drained from Henderson's face. He looked from the TV to the document on the table, then to Jessica. He realized instantly that he was an accessory to a felony in progress. He snapped his briefcase shut, his hands shaking. I was not aware of this," he stammered. backing toward the door. "I am leaving. This meeting is over." "Sit down," the deputy barked, blocking his path. "Nobody is going anywhere." Jessica tried to speak, to spin another lie, but the audio of her own cruelty drowned her out. She looked at the deputies, then at me, and finally at the smoke detector on the ceiling, realizing too late that the house itself had testified against her. The game was up. The next hour was a blur of vindication. Jessica was not just fired. She was handcuffed in the middle of the living room. The deputies read her rights while she sobbed fake tears. Try and play the victim one last time. Nobody was buying it. She was charged with elder abuse, attempted fraud, and false imprisonment. As they led her out to the squad car, she didn't look at me. She kept her head down, shielding her face from the neighbors who had gathered on the sidewalk. Paramedics arrived to check on Dad. They confirmed he was dehydrated and over-medicated, but he was stable. They flushed the drugs from his system with fluids and gave him a clean bill of health, though they recommended rest. The quitclaim deed was bagged as evidence. Henderson, the lawyer, was detained for questioning. It turned out he had a history of facilitating questionable property transfers. I fired him on the spot, telling him he would be hearing from a real attorney, one who specialized in malpractice. By evening, the house was quiet again. The police were gone. The gate was open. I sat in the living room with Dad. The drugs were wearing off, and the fog in his eyes was lifting. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in weeks. He reached out and took my hand, his grip weak but steady. "I thought you forgot me," he whispered, his voice raspy. "Never," I said, squeezing his hand back. "I was watching the whole time, Dad. I just had to wait for the right moment to get you out." We sat there for a long time, watching the sun go down through the window. The grandfather clock ticked rhythmically in the corner. Its hidden I no longer needed, just a silent guardian keeping watch. I realized then that technology isn't just about convenience. Sometimes it is the only thing standing between people we love and the darkness that tries to take them. We were safe. And this time, I wasn't going anywhere.
If you enjoy radio-style stories like this, please consider staying with us. This is QCF.